Mr Speaker.
I call Melissa Lee.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I just want to address a couple of things that the honourable member across on the other side has actually sort of mentioned. He doubts whether one minister can actually manage the decision-making process. I guess he comes from a party where their leaders can't actually make decisions, and they actually need a consensus and a committee, and they still can't come up with a decision. So I do actually understand the member's history and the reason why he's actually come to that sort of a conclusion. But on this side of the House, we have confidence in our ministers, and that member was concerned that maybe this minister might actually be browbitten by foreign business people that might actually, browbeat her down into making a proper decision that she might get influence. I have to actually say that that member has never been in a room to have a discussion with this minister, and she is she's no pushover. Let me just put it this way. Sir, this bill has a significant amount of debate in the Commerce Committee, and as the Minister has alluded, we also did that during the committee stages in this House, sir. And I'd just like to thank the members of the Commerce Select Committee, because we are a tied committee and often we do actually have differences, but I have to say that we do try and work through our differences and have the mutual respect that it actually deserves during the committee stages, and I appreciate all the work that they have actually done. And particularly to our Secretariat, our clerks have worked tirelessly and they do actually help us a lot, and of course the department assistance that we've actually had, sir. When, as the Minister sort of alluded earlier in her speech, when disaster strikes New Zealand or an emergency takes place, we need to be able to have practical rules in place to support New Zealand families and businesses. Giving the responsible minister the discretion to take leadership, to take action, is an important one, and can only be done through the implementation of this bill, sir. In the legislation we hope to pass today is it says that if the minister considers that the users of goods subject to an anti-dumping or countervailing duty have been significantly impacted by a natural disaster or an emergency, the minister may, by notice, terminate or suspend in whole or in part the imposition of a duty. And I note this wording is important because there will be occasions where goods may need to be completely freed from duties due to the nature of the emergency, and other goods which should still be held accountable to our trading regimes that are not vital during disaster periods, sir. Consistently across our legislation has been a key goal during this government. Part of the reason why we have a Minister for Regulatory Reform, now Honourable Paul Goldsmith, and the former Minister in charge of this bill. And this bill allows for us to strengthen the government's capacity to respond to disasters by effectively tying together with the Civil Defence and Emergency Management Act, ensuring a consistent approach to handling emergency management needs across all of our legislation. Sir, the Minister and the member opposite have also touched on the subject of public interest test. The consumer test is a really important aspect of this bill, sir, and one that I'm very proud to support, and I'm glad that we've actually come to this position on this bill. We need to ensure that when we impose an at-the-border duty, that we actually take into account the potential costs to users of the product when it is imposed, and how that might affect the wider market for those goods. If a duty is imposed and it results in the market becoming fragile or in severe limitation of access to the necessary product, it is important that the tools are there to revise the decision prior to implementation and provide a fair process, sir. This has been a very productive process through the Select Committee process, and I thank the members once again. I believe this is a good bill, and it will certainly make a difference for a better New Zealand trade law, and I commend this bill to the House.
The Honourable David Parker.
Mr Speaker, I can't do better than repeat the words of New Zealand Steel and their very clearly expressed concerns about